Welcome to A Matter of Degrees, a podcast for higher education marketers. I'm Justin Summers. We are here today with Bergen Lindner, an account executive, to talk about what it's like as an account executive here, how we push clients outside of their comfort zone safely, and really what drives distinction in higher education from our agency perspective. Welcome, Bergen.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you explain just a little bit for context before we jump into the questions about you, your role, and what you do here at Epicosity with our higher education clients?
Yeah, so my role here at Epicosity is kind of like a three-legged approach. So first and foremost, I establish that relationship with the client. I'm their main point of contact, responsible for making sure we understand their goals, we're setting things up appropriately, we're reaching and exceeding their expectations. Always. Then second, I'm kind of a project manager in a sense where
Nice.
I'm setting up projects, watching timelines, budgets, all of that
Everybody's
good stuff. And then on that third leg, I really focus on, what's next for the client, making sure that we're evolving with them from a strategic standpoint. How can we best, grow their brand and what's next for the client?
What's your favorite leg of that stool that you get to do?
Oh, probably the first one, making
Yeah.
sure, establishing that connection with the client and going back and forth with them. And working with them. I think that's the most rewarding part, at least.
You're here for the people. That's awesome. A lot of agencies structure that differently. Some of them are more sales and some of them are more project managers. So it's really cool. You kind of get the opportunity to do a lot of those different things in your role. And I know one thing as Epicosity people, we always say is we want to be your partner and not your vendor. What do you think that looks like, and how do you shift maybe from a partner or from a vendor to a partner?
Yeah, I think there's an obvious line that is drawn when you become like more of a partner than a vendor, and that goes like when you're not just expected to execute on a campaign, when you're actually brought into more conversations and they're looking for our insights and they're looking for our strategy. I think there's a next level that's taken when it's like, okay, there's an obvious sense of trust here where we want your input, collaboration, beyond just being a vendor and hoping that we can create an ad and check the box.
Fair, yeah. You said something there about sort of the collaboration and the trust. I think from personal experience, I would imagine in your personal experience as well, that doesn't come without some trials or some adversity overcame. Have you had any experiences like that recently where you were able to build trust with the client? And I know, we as an agency sort of at the onset make it really clear that that's our intention is to be your strategic partner. But sometimes it doesn't work like that, right? Like some clients want a vendor to sort of play a role. And so just kind of your experience maybe recently or with a different project in the past, what has that conversation been like, or what kind of experience was that like?
Yeah, one of the things I really like that we do at Epicosity is the relationship charter. So from the onset of the relationship, I get to meet with the client and their internal team and understand, their communication styles, the decision-making process that goes into it. I think it just lays a really good foundation of expectations, how I can best communicate, with you, receive feedback, give feedback, all of that good stuff. But of course, there's going to be adversity and maybe some bumps in the road. And so I think one thing that's been helpful is like getting them on the call, as simple as it sounds, is, pick up the phone, call them, and like when we talk through it, it's like, okay, maybe what's not meeting your expectations, what can we be doing differently, how can we pivot and adjust to, meet and exceed your expectations. And I think that just transparency in the relationship is something that we value, and of course they value as well. So
Awesome. Do you think that there are certain aspects of the client relationship that maybe you personally pay attention to more, or maybe Epicosity as a whole really sets itself up for, and how that sort of plays a role in a very risk-adverse industry like higher education?
Yeah, I think Epicosity as a team in its entirety is super collaborative. Like when we onboard with a client, we don't just take that project over and it's like, see you when we're done. I think throughout the process, it's a very back and forth experience. I think one of the misconceptions sometimes is that like clients think that like we are attempting to know their university better than they know it. And it's like, we're never trying to do that. And so the more we can be collaborative and work back and forth on different rounds of revisions or feedback, like I think that constructive feedback is really helpful for our team, so that we can just move forward and establish that trust and collaboration. So
does feedback ever get tense or hard to hear from the agency side? Because I know in the client experience, it could be hard to give feedback to your agency when you feel like, they're doing all this for you, you're paying them so much money, or what have you. But have you had any experiences with processing feedback from client to the internal team, or vice versa from the internal team to the client side?
Yeah, I think that's where my role is really special, is because I serve as that buffer and kind of intaking that feedback and information on like, okay, what are we really trying to get at here? Like, is it the color scheme? Like what is really...
Is it really the colors? Or
what
are we
needs
doing
to be
here?
revised here, and kind of getting to the nitty gritty. So when I bring it back to the internal team, it's not personal, it's constructive, and this is how we can best align ourselves to get on the same page again. I think that's probably where it's most beneficial, is me serving as that buffer and leading from there.
So with creative and feedback and the world of higher ed, we here at Epicosity lovingly call it sometimes the sea of sameness, right? Where things start to blend in. Universities, have guardrails to which they feel comfortable moving in. But some clients and universities are able to bend those a little bit. Where have you found internally those teams and the difference between maybe another team that just really wants to play it safe? What has to happen internally for that shift, for like creative bravery to happen, at least in your experience?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of alignment, and it's not just between like the agency and the marketing team, but it's also buy-in from admissions and the executive leadership team. If you can have alignment on all three of those cylinders, I think that just creates a universal united front that helps us be able to push forward. And if everyone's understanding the why, I think that's what really helps us push that standard of excellence.
Awesome. So now we're going to play a little game. We call it distinction or distraction. Okay. I'm going to present you some scenarios, and we're just going to talk about them. If that's a hindrance, if that's an advantage, and maybe just a little bit about some fun situations that either may or may not have come up in your role. So the first one, a campaign is approved. You guys have worked on it. It's all ready to go, but marketing leadership gets cold feet right before launch.
I think it happens. I mean, that's not uncommon, I think. Usually, as an Epicosity team, we like to have a plan B, making sure that, this is our plan A, we're approved for launch. If things go south, this is what our next step would be. But usually in that situation, I think I have the most beneficial role that I can serve, and provide clarity and ground the conversation in the intention that we put behind it, the why, the rationale, the data, everything that went into creating this brand campaign or whatever we're doing, and making sure that we're all feeling good about it before it hits that launch date.
Awesome. A client replaces all of their written and verbal feedback with emojis.
I love it.
Is that better?
Assuming it's positive. I think, I don't know if it's better, but I think it
skull and crossbones. Skull and crossbones. Is that good? Is that bad? We're going to take it as good.
Well, yeah, I think...
You killed it, right?
Dead. Love. I think it provides me, a level of comfortability. Like, they can be themselves and they can provide feedback in an open, transparent way.
Yeah.
But I think I'd probably follow up with some clarifying questions on,
just a question mark emoji.
There is
one. Or an exclamation point.
Yeah, no.
Awesome. Cool. Well, next let's dive into, you mentioned in some of our other questions about the internal shifts, the type of team on the client side that really gets what you need and gets us and we get them, and it's really a collaborative process. But typically, especially in higher ed, that's a university-wide attitude or environment, and so culture being sort of the driver of great creative and breaking free from some of the typical industry norms. I just have some questions about what you've seen internally and externally about client-side culture and what you think is required. And you mentioned some of this previously, but from internally their culture, what's required for some of that bravery to really come out and manifest itself in some of the campaign work or the creative, or really just the type of collaboration they're providing with their agency partner.
I think some of the words that come to mind is curiosity, collaboration, and trust. I think one of the really cool things is when we meet an internal team, and you can tell from the onset that everyone
vibes
gets
are there.
everyone gets to pitch their perspective. And I think that's really important, because when you get into situations where almost like groupthink, where you're just going with the flow, this is what we've always done, you know, not pushing it. It's really cool to see marketing directors like allow their team to like raise their hand, speak their opinion, because the more perspectives we have, I think that's when something really cool happens.
How do you support clients with some of their internal silos, their politics, or any kind of hesitation that might affect them in a negative way, or that might cause a rift between us and them? How does that conversation go usually, or is there certain things that you do from your role?
When we're working with a client, it's really important to have them see us as an extension of their team. So what they need, like we can provide for them and with them, and we're working in collaboration to, you know, get that campaign to launch.
Awesome. I love that extension of the team. What's one thing you think higher ed should do when it comes to collaboration, not just with agencies, but with each other, with their different departments, with their internal structures, with their students? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is trust. When you hire on an agency, you should trust that, you know, we can take it, and we can be an extension of your team, work with you, help you reach those goals. I think a lot of times it's, you know, we sign on with a client, it's like, we'll see that campaign in a month, right? And so just kind of filling them in on how this process works, and working in tandem and collaboration, and ultimately just having trust in your agency that, you know, we'll have your back, and we're working together on this, and we'll all push together for that launch.
What do you think makes a bad agency experience versus a good agency experience, and how do you personally and us as an agency sort of cultivate that with our clients?
Yeah, I think usually when there's low trust and low communication, and I think one thing I've learned is when that happens, it's obvious from the client side and the agency side. You know, it's usually not just one person's feeling it. Usually if something's going on, everyone can kind of sense it. And so I think being, you know, proactive in those situations and being able to be transparent and connect with them, like what's going on, being able to work through any tensions or bumps that we may hit, because it's almost bound to happen in advertising. And so being able to work with them, and I think that's something that the relationship charter really tees us up for, is having those hard conversations and making sure that if there's a communication style or feedback style that we can best be, you know, accommodating to, is that we're doing it.
Awesome. Good answer. I thought I could cross that off.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Because I think it's just too,
it goes too,
it's too close to home right now.
It's too close. That's okay. Okay, I got some rapid fire questions for you. Right off the top of your head, you can explain and expand if you want.
Okay.
You definitely don't have to, okay? Wrong. What's one cliche higher ed just needs to get rid of?
I think it's being everything to everyone. I know like enrollment is so big in this day and age, but I think trying to be everything to everyone is where universities are running into trouble. I think especially with the research we've done with Gen Alpha and Gen Z, they want authenticity. They want something that's real. And so being able to find your unique selling point or distinction as a university or community college, I think that's what's really important, is being, you know, special to someone.
Advice for a new higher education marketer working with an agency.
Yeah, I would encourage them to ask questions. If there's questions on the process or how we like to do things, I'm more than willing to hop on a call or go back and forth through email, whatever works best, to make sure that they feel like they're a part of this process and that we're working on it with them.